welcome everyone. And many of you have been in the book group before, but many of you have not. And so I just want to welcome those of you who are new and to say that this is a very informal book group, and we use the book mainly as a jumping off place. So if you don't get to the reading before we meet, it's okay. And because the discussions generally are quite rich, although reading the book along the way will probably help keep the thread going. So, but please don't not come because you haven't been able to get to the reading. And so I usually start with a meditation, and then we open up the floor for comments about how the first two chapters, that's what we're focusing on tonight, how those first two chapters landed for you, if you had any questions that came up. And we're not here to offer facts, but we are all students, and so we all are offering what is our perspective. And if we want more of a teaching, we can always contact Chandrila, and she will definitely be available to anybody who would like to have more of the philosophy explained to them, and if that comes up. And we try and speak from our own experience here, not so much from facts. So let's start with a meditation from Chandrila's book, which is The Heart of the Cho. And I thought we would try and work with becoming embodied for this conversation. So let's meditate with the body. Close your eyes or gaze down softly, whichever you feel like. Transitioning from the activity of arriving to the experience of just being here. And notice that the breath is already breathing you. The ground is coming to meet you already, and the air is softly touching your skin. Sounds are gently coming to your ears. All of these are supporting you. Invite your awareness and breath into your body all the way to your lower belly. Feeling that your body is like a glass jar, filling from the bottom with luminous clarity. Notice the sensation between your cushion or chair and your lower body. The support coming up from the earth. Ground in that feeling of the support coming up from the earth. And see if you can relax into it, melting into the earth. In discussing the posture of the body in meditation, we traditionally talk about the 7 points of Vairochana posture. All these points are related to the subtle body in a specific way. The way we sit, whether in a lotus posture or in a chair, helps keep the downward flow of prana, energy wind, in the avaduti, the central channel. So however you're sitting, whether in a lotus posture or on a chair, make sure you are grounded and connected to your seat. Then place your hands in the meditative equipoise mudra, down near your navel. This is the 2nd point, and it brings the water prana into the central channel and pacifies mental afflictions, especially aggression and anger. Next, straighten your spine like an arrow and expand your shoulders like the wings of a vulture. These are the third and fourth points. Elongate your spine from the crown of your skull, dropping down onto the tailbone. See if you can feel a bit of a curve in your lower back. That protects it, especially when you're sitting for a long time. The shoulders are parallel but relaxed, draping down into your back body. This helps bring the earth element, or earth prana, into the central channel, pacifying ignorance. Bring your rib cage back, leaning a little more onto the back body so that your chest is nice and open. Your shoulder blades should be a little more back and down, as if they are melting down onto the earth. See if you can do this from the inside out. As we lean into the back body, we are remembering the tradition from which we came, remembering the lineage and its history. We are also starting to get a sense of our own connection to our own tradition and to our lineage histories. The communities which have been our sources of inspiration and support, our guides. Sense very directly and personally into your own journey up to this point, while recognizing all those who have been supporting you. Perhaps someone who has recently been encouraging you, or perhaps a role model. Just see if you can lean back with ease into that feeling of support, relaxing with appreciation and gratitude. The fifth point of the posture is that the neck is gently curved and the chin is slightly tucked in. Your throat is nice and soft. Basically, the back side of the skull should be aligned over the sacrum. You might have to bring your chin a little bit back, not tucked in too much, but just see if that makes you feel more aligned. The head is just floating on top of the spine. This brings the fire energy, fire prana, into the central channel and pacifies desire. If you'd like to try to open your eyes a bit, your gaze is set to rest 4 finger widths from the end of the nose, just downward, gazing into space. This is the 6th point. Finally, rest your tongue on your palate, lips almost touching, teeth slightly separated. This brings the wind prana into the central channel, pacifying pride and generating mental clarity. That is the 7th point. According to the 9th Karmapa, this 7-point posture pacifies the mental afflictions naturally and brings the pranas and mind into the central channel of their own accord. When we do this, thoughts stop on their own, a light openness and vibrant lucidity manifest, and realization arises quickly. So take a moment to become aware of your experience. You can rub your hands together and place them on your heart, sealing in your experience. And those of you who have not turned your video on, I know that Jillian's putting her children to bed. If you can, that's great. Here we are on our first journey into the path of death and dying. And what was it like to read these two chapters? Anybody have a burning thought that came up?
For me, this is just, it's very timely. I have several family members facing critical illnesses. So death and the preciousness of life is on my mind. I think what stood out for me and what I'm wrestling with is, yes, I get that life is impermanent and it's always changing, but I fight it. I have a really hard time accepting reality. And somebody recently told me, said, I'm really trying to accept it. And he said to me, could you even agree with reality? And I'm not there yet, but I'm exploring what, becoming more comfortable with uncertainty and impermanence.
Yes, I was particularly struck with the last two questions that he says in the second chapter. How is our relationship to impermanence? Isn't that what this whole journey is about? And what supports us in that journey?
Well, I'll jump in here with a comment that really affected me when I read this the second time, just before coming here again. It's obviously we have to embrace death because it's coming. We don't know when. As I get older, I think about it a lot. Like Peter and I were going, well, we're getting there. And so you never know when it's going to come, though. But what really came out in my mind today is that we're imprisoned by the very aspect of ourselves that has to die. And that it really hit me hard because being retired, I don't have an occupation. So I've been doing a lot of fixing things up outside, gardening that have ruined my knees. I'm doing stuff that's not necessary. I love my practice. I am preparing, but not as if it's really the most important thing in my life. So this was a wake-up call. I just wanted to confess that.
I was also struck by how many distractions are in my life. Yeah.
So I liked the way in which Sogyal Rinpoche talked about just the busy making stuff in our life, and so the way I thought it was really brilliant, the way he called it irresponsibility, rather than we usually take these things to be purely responsibility. And of course, some things, we may indeed have responsibility, but how much of what we do may really be able to call it irresponsibility and not really taking the time to view essential things about our existence. And so it struck me that perhaps that might be some of the reason for a lot of the busy making, is to distract us from the overall looming unquestionable reality that we don't live forever, and that this has meaning not just for us, but for everybody around us. And maybe we're just taking a lot of time to just distract ourselves from what we would settle in and see if we weren't doing all the busy making. I think I could relate to that anyway.
It makes me think about so many times I've read in different ways how making friends with death really allows us to live and be in the moment and not be quite so busy. Yeah.
I felt really energized when he was talking, particularly about thinking of the next life and how often I don't think about that. And when I do think about it, I think about practicing more and more present in my practice. Just somehow I just had this energetic feeling that really helped me to move on a little bit. And recently I've had kind of a experience with impermanence also. I was feeling great, and then I was just knocked out by some virus for about 3 weeks, and I thought maybe this is going to take me out. So fortunately it didn't, but it helps me to keep coming back to what's important and not get too entangled in outside things. And we were also just with a friend in California 2 months who is a longtime Dharma practitioner. And she has a very ordered life, unlike mine. And it was really nice to be with her and see the benefits of this kind of ordered life, not too many distractions, even though she has a lot of things that she does in her community. And so I was inspired by being with her too. And so anyway, I'm just glad that we're all together to talk about this. So thank you.
I mean, many things struck me. His writing was very appealing and easy to read, so I like that. And there are a lot of things I'd like to talk about, but just to zero in on one, it was about simplifying, I guess, because he says we have to simplify our lives, which a lot of people have spoken about already. And it was the third time in about a week that I saw that, that I heard that. I had been speaking with a person who owns a yoga studio I go to, and then a Reiki practitioner friend. And the word simplify just keeps coming up. And I'm in my life now, I'm sort of in a whirlwind. And I'm sort of longing to simplify and spend more time in the place that the author is recommending. It was interesting that the word just keeps coming up. So I have to listen to the message, but it's hard to let go of all, my job and all that, but I have to. I can't keep going on being, doing what I'm doing for so much longer. So, and I'd like to move into that more balanced, or try to create it now. It's harder, but it's definitely a longing that I have to have that more balance and be in that place that he's suggesting.
This is a wonderful meeting. I'm really excited to talk about this topic. It's something I've been thinking about since like 1995 when I was a teenager. And I was actually thinking about the Tibetan Book of the Dead and how I encountered it in Twin Peaks. I don't know if anyone else has been a fan of that show, but that's when I first heard it. And this came out around that time. So I was just wondering if there's any correlation to its popularity and, the mention of the Tibetan Book of the Dead in that show. That was sort of a peripheral comment, but something that really stuck out with me was sort of the description of housekeeping in a dream. As being like in the book, there's a quote where he says that one master compares our responsibilities to housekeeping in a dream. And but it's like it's one of those dreams that is very real, and we still have to earn a living, and we still have to kind of balance our life with its place in sort of the infinite gulf between birth and death. So it's something where I've been struggling with, like should I go to accounting school or should I go meditate, or that kind of stuff, back and forth throughout my life. Like what is really valuable? We still have like our karmic situation to get through, and we still have our anxieties and depressions, even though we know that it's impermanent. It's like, and then but then it's kind of like the idea, but then I still have to do that, but then I still have to worry about my family and my kids and my job and my house. So I don't know, it's pretty intense either way. And one last thing was like simplify, and in the context of Vajrayana, for me at least, feels like Vajrayana adds like complexity first, before it gets to simplicity. So after my 10th empowerment in the last 2 years or something, and like so many different practices and techniques, I'm looking forward to the simplicity as well.
My first exposure to the Bardos was about 50 years ago, and Timothy Leary and Richard Albert Ramdas' book, The Psychedelic Experience, based on the Tibetan Book of the Dead. It was a very, very important seminal event in my life. At the stage I'm at now, for several years, I've been very interested in finding resources, a guide to help me prepare. And so I'm very appreciative of finding this group. The reading for me raised my awareness of my internal contradictions, because he's defining Bardo a little bit differently in these chapters as the cycle of being born and living and preparing to and dying and then being reborn. And I realize that I'm not sure that I hold that as the cycle. I do. So the contradiction is this: if I don't have clarity on what happens after death, why is it so important to me to want to be prepared to encounter the Bardos mindfully and successfully when I do die? So there was a contradiction for me to explore further there.
So I read this book about 30 years ago for the first time, maybe 25 years ago, and I haven't picked it up since, but I remember very strongly Sogyal's. I went and saw him live in Australia once as well, because the way he communicates really resonates with just a beautiful explanation of death, and it's always interested me. So when I first read the book, I was crying. I was in the mountains of the Himalayas at the time, traveling, and I had this feeling that I would be helping people to die. And so this book, when I saw this coming on, I really felt called to come and revisit this and to start opening up this conversation for myself and to share with others. And recently I've been called to go deeper into the central channel. And so when you were sharing the meditation, I came on a bit late. So I'm curious about the meditation. I can't remember if it's in the book or not. And perhaps, Elizabeth, you could share a bit about that, and maybe I could somehow get that as a resource, because it's important to me. Thank you.
I, like Susan, I think said, there's so much here just in the first 2 chapters. We could talk for a long time about lots of different things, but just to throw something out there that stuck with me was one of the statements that death is a mirror for our life, or something to that effect. And I think one of the things that's a common factor for most people, me included, is this fear, individually and collectively as a society in the Western world. There's a fear of death, of the unknown. So I can really see that as a mirror, because I think fear underlies a lot of our anxieties and emotions and things that get in the way of us serving other beings. So I'm looking forward to, just this journey of exploring how preparing for death, even though we don't know what we're preparing for, but how that can be a mirror for our lives right here, right now on this earth.
I enjoyed the reading. It was really very helpful. And further, I think it's helpful to be here in this group talking about it, because those nearest and dearest to me in my life are not really interested in talking about death with me. So I think it will be instructive, but it will also be a nice, relaxed place to be where people are not going to get upset discussing the subject with me.
Yeah, and I'm appreciating everybody's comments too. It feels so rich. So I feel like we're creating this group, co-creating this group together. So thank you all.
I also wanted to reflect a little bit on impermanence, and Ira, what you said really struck me as well. I think a lot about death as a doula, and for me, I feel like I would be okay if death were to come for me. I feel like I'm okay with that level of non-attachment. But I do find that when it's like people who are close to me or a client that I've spent, many months with, that's when I feel the attachment and my kind of resistance towards impermanence. And so it's been an interesting observation to kind of witness of my own experience in it, and then how I feel about the impermanence of others. And it's interesting, it comes back to that contradiction where, I do firmly believe that, we reincarnate and our souls meet again, and that, we are all this one energy, but then you still feel that like, oh, but we're not when this person leaves their human body. And so contradiction is something that is a great word, Ira. And so thank you for that share, because it really it was exactly what I was feeling inside. So
impermanence is just right up there with something that I think we all have to realize we live with every day. And there are some things that have really struck me along the way. One of them is just the need to live every day as if it might be our last day, for example. I mean, this is, after a while, maybe this doesn't seem very, the way we start, but, that's the way we're going to end up. So you might as well start working on it now. And, there's a number of wonderful contemplations about impermanence, including things like every time you leave a place, it might be the last time you see this place or last time you see a friend. Remember to say you love people. All this kind of thing is, for me, the essence of preparing for death. I mean, because it can come at any time. We'd love to think we could see this coming and to think about it and all that, but really, there's a lot of mystery about this too. It's not something, there's a certain limitation on where clarity can lead. And, this whole death process led me into learning about POA, and then learning about Chud, and then all the stuff we're doing in this Sangha. And I'm really happy that you're pursuing this as a topic right now. So thank you, Elizabeth, and thank you everybody for being here as part of it.
I appreciate Kandrila and Ellen and all those who thought up this group. I just get to facilitate it. I'm really very grateful too. So
yeah, I'm really appreciating being here and hearing everybody's comments. And thank you, Elizabeth, for facilitating us. I hope I can be articulate about this because the thought is just forming as I'm listening. And I went back to the italics at the beginning of the impermanence chapter. Well, it's where he's talking about how practicing death actually leads to freedom. And I was thinking about how so much of my fear is about what I think is going to happen, which really comes out of habit. It comes from a place where it's a lack of recognition of impermanence. It's as if what I imagine is permanently how things are going to go, and how much more freedom can come from recognizing impermanence, because things are not necessarily going to go the way the imagination or the dream in our waking life perceives it. And so I was just thinking about that whole notion of the freedom that can come from impermanence and embracing death and opening to the not knowing and to the mystery.
Yeah, I love what you said, Marla. It's I was thinking about this also as David was speaking, because I saw my parents die, my brother die, my sister die, my first husband dies. And so it's, it's all around us, especially as we age. And it's like, all right, it's coming. And we talk about this a lot, Peter and I, but you can't really grasp it, but we can each moment. And I like the way he ended this second chapter by saying that our bodies change every moment. but we don't see it. The cells are dying. The new ones might be coming back, you know, who knows as we get older. But also all we have is this moment, and each moment is very precious. And I think this is really, this was the big message I got from this book, is to live and just enjoy like this moment together right now. This is not going to last. It's beautiful. The thing that the one comment from this chapter that really got me was, well, I have my mind. I have what I've learned in Dharma. But the one comment was, our mind, or our character, which I thought I've been developing all my life, is only a mind stream, and the mind dies. And so what are you left with? So this is really more incentive to practice as we go along, to get really ready for this big, I think life, like he's saying, life is a big moment to practice for death. Because as we go into our next life, we have a moment to keep going and to get less selfish and more interested in bodhicitta, and to help all the, because we're all in this process together, and to really help each other go through this and get beyond it. So anyway, I just wanted to add that. Thank you.
I recently, like 3 weeks ago, was with my stepfather who died, and he was in a diamond approach practice for 35 years and planned, expected to meditate in his death, at his death, upon his death, with his death. He had dementia by the time he died. Meditation was not a part of his daily being. And I think about that, I want to say, you know, plan as you might. It is impermanent. The moment is impermanent. And plans are practice for today, for this moment, not for this unknown thing that's going to happen in the future. My wife, who passed away 3 years ago, was so ready to let go. But I witnessed the body's will to live. She said goodbye to everybody 9 months before her body let her go. So all of this is just to say, today is all we have, and we can't know. And we can practice for today.
Yeah, Dorothy, you really sort of opened the door for me. What I was going to say too, and that was about when my previous wife was dying. And it really actually confirmed for me what I always felt in myself, was that, you know, hopefully as an observer and less as a mental participant, I would be able to see that, yeah, the body really has its own mechanisms to fight. And, you know, that's really, you know, assume that that's just built in as a biological organism. And, you know, we're probably going to find that happening. And then that's fine. That's all built to be that way. And that's good. But I was really struck, our neighbor recently died. And I was over there seeing him a few days before he went, and I had to lean very close to hear what he was saying. And the last thing he said to me was, he said, "Tell Betty," he said, "thank you for being a friend." And I thought, wow, you know, I mean, he was using that moment to kind of spread love and appreciation to other people. And I thought, it was simple, but what a wonderful thing to hear, you know, from somebody in that place. And this is sort of how he wanted to spend his days. And I have to say, it was kind of a reflection of how he had spent his life, actually, when he wasn't in that place. So it was actually very fitting and very moving anyway.
Well, what's coming to me is how death is perhaps the biggest renunciation that we can have as on this path of the bodhisattva. And if we're practicing to renunciation in every moment, perhaps we'll have that opportunity when we meet that threshold.
what you said really made me think about this. I just started reading Pema Chodron's book, We Die as We Live. I think it's titled something like that. I don't, and this notion, you know, as your neighbor, Peter, you know, that a little bit sort of tying in what Dorothy and Peter said, that if we're living for this moment with an awareness of the preciousness of life and what's most important, that when we come to the point of renouncing this body, there's going to be a momentum that will carry us at that moment, just because of how we've lived.
I like to think so. Kirsten, yeah, thank you. Yeah, I think of the great beings who are able to, the Shakti is so strong inside of them, they sit for 3 days, but after they've passed away, or they you know, there is that phenomena in our world, but is that because that's what they did, or why is that, you know? And as Betty said, or somebody said about this person who practiced the diamond practice all the time and then was in dementia. It's an interesting conundrum.
Kind of want to pick up on that sort of like body yearning for life and living, and that level of attachment that is not, you know, in our conscious awareness. And I was just kind of wondering about how like meditation like gets us in touch with that, and you know, and what like in that context, what genuinely relaxing might feel like, because we are constantly in a panic, like every moment of our lives, that, you know, every time we breathe, it's like a little panic, and we do it so much we're not aware of it most of the time, until we either have like a panic attack, or you can't catch your breath, or you know, the door opens suddenly behind you and you feel a little like you're gonna fall, or you know, but we're constantly like yearning to live in like a kind of, I guess, neurotic way is the word he used in a different context, but a similar way. And I don't know, I'm looking forward to being able to genuinely feel like a real deep relaxation that is beyond like my mental sort of I guess hope or fear, you know.
That's an interesting thought. We're constantly in a panic.
Sparked something in me that I hadn't considered before. The body wants to live even in extremis. And part of our job, I think, is to honor our body. And perhaps a stance might be to thank it for wanting to live and for all it's done to continue living and to allow us to have the experience that we have had in this life. And then perhaps, after thanking it with deep gratitude, to give it our permission that it's okay to stop doing its wonderful, wonderful work, that it has done its job, and to thank our body, and sort of allow it to come to closure on its work.
I think of all those times that we're told to let people go, to tell them it's okay for them to go, but I never thought of it for telling ourselves. Yeah.
Just a quick follow-up. I guess that's why Cho has always been so intriguing, because we are actually like going right there, and why it's so terrifying to a certain extent, and almost, you know, so subversive, that we're going against the general approach of like kind of indulging the body's fear. We're like reversing it.
Yeah, thank you. Does everybody know what Cho is? Cho is a practice in Vajrayana Buddhism. Is a practice in Vajrayana Buddhism where we offer our body to our demons. And in that, they become our ally. It's a practice that came in, I think it was the 11th or 8th or 11th century with a practitioner, a great Dakini, Machi Labdram. And she had that experience of offering her body, and the demons became her ally. And this practice came through her. And so the Dakini whisper lineage is Cho is one of the main practices of the Dakini whisper lineage. So if you're interested in knowing more, definitely ask practitioners here, or look on YouTube, and Chandrila has some explanations of it as well. It's been quite a provocative discussion, and I know I'm going to be considering a lot of the things that you all have brought today. I really feel like it helped me imbibe what I read. And for the next month, each month we'll be reading 2 more chapters. So the idea is I think there's 20 chapters in the book. So the idea, and then we'll probably have a couple of sessions at least that Chandrila will visit us and share some practices and some teachings. So we see this as a year-long group. And so the next 2 chapters are reflection and change and the nature of mind. Our practice is to dedicate this time that we've been together to anyone in your life that you feel could benefit from this energy, and as well as to the world at large and to all beings everywhere. May any benefit of us coming together and having this conversation expand to all beings everywhere. And I also like to end with dedicating this to Chandrila, and may her teachings spread far and wide, and may she have a long and prosperous life.